Hey, it's Eric G. Around the House is sponsored by Baldwin Hardware. For 75 years, Baldwin Hardware has been known for its first-class quality and craftsmanship in door and cabinetry hardware. As an alumnus of the Baldwin Hardware Design Council, I can say I have seen the details and quality from design to the finished product. If you're looking for a new style and old-world craftsmanship, I can tell you there is only one Baldwin Hardware. Check out what would look great in your home at baldwinhardware.com.
It's Around the House.
Those Weber kettles, number one, they're the number one selling barbecue in the world. Mm-hmm. They have been forever. Yep. If you start by using a Weber kettle, you're probably going to, adapt your skills faster or learn your skills faster than you are on a $199 gas grill, because you have to pay more attention with charcoal.
Yeah.
It's very simple, easy mistakes that people make. They put in too much briquettes or they lump whatever they're using. Gets too hot. They let it burn down a little bit. And then they think, okay, it's good. It's still hotter than hell in there, and they think, well, now I can do this whole chicken or whatever. Maybe they've spatchcocked it or something. A lot of times you end up with one side that's pretty much crispy, and the other side that's still clucking.
When it comes to remodeling and renovating your home, there is a lot to know, but we've got you covered. This is Around the House.
Welcome to Around the House Show. This is where we help you get the most out of your home through education and information, and a heck of a lot of fun like today. We have got Jeff Tracy here in the studio. JT, the Cowboy Cook from BBQ Nation, Grilling at the Green. And you might have even seen him on a milk carton out there at some time in your life. Welcome back to Around the House, my friend.
Hey, good morning.
Long time listener, first time caller. We're starting out that way already today, my friend. This is how it's going to go.
It's going to just go from here right in the swirling water down. Yeah, done.
Exactly.
But it's Friday. Yeah. St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely. It is a day that even the Catholics can have some meat today, I see on the twos. So
yeah. They finally got the cinder block off their forehead from a couple weeks ago.
It's all good. All good.
Yeah.
So today I wanted to talk, we're coming into spring, we got the daylight back a little bit in the evenings, and it is for the amateurs barbecue season. For you and I, every day is barbecue season, but for many people, they start going, hey, let's dust that grill off and start getting going on stuff. And I thought, what not a great time to bring you in and have a chat about, good habits of barbecue and for all the amateurs out there and even the experienced stuff. There's always something from these that people can take away with. And, I've noticed, we'll start at the basics here. I've noticed that if I go up to my local grocery store, and I'm not going to hammer on any names, but we'll say it's the chain grocery store, and I grab a T-bone off the rack and take it home, and I go, man, that was not amazing, even though I got a decent grill. What's the secret of barbecue there when you're talking about things like meat?
Well, you have to ascertain if it's Brontosaurus or if it's actually Angus. Okay,
fair point.
Because some of the chains don't quite use the grade choice or prime.
Sure.
They think because it does that, it's ready to go. It's not. It's you want to check those labels, check the marbling. Kind of, it's easier to check the marbling if you're actually buying it out of the case where the butcher has to reach in, grab it, and show it to you. There we go. The stuff that's prepackaged, you can't always see the marbling. And there's little tricks to that if it's getting a little age on it, they can trim it a little more and that kind of grayish brown goes away. There's nothing wrong with that. But that will go away and look bright red again and all pretty and everybody's good. And then you cook it and it tastes like a used waffle iron. Not the waffle, the iron part. It's just not very good.
It's just not good.
So, check the marbling, check the meat, make sure you look on the on the package, if you're buying prepackaged stuff and it says choice or prime, you don't want select, or you don't want utility grade. You don't want prison food.
Not
you
fit
want
for human consumption.
yeah. The dog walks by and goes, "No, I'm good."
Institutional use only stamp. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So check those things. Also, check your grill. The main thing, Eric, is if you haven't fired up your grill, excuse me, all winter, you should just take it for a test run. Don't even cook anything on it. Just fire it up. Maybe you got a few
fuzzies,
undetermined biologics on there. So you burn those off, clean it off really well, but make sure, like if it's a gas grill, if it's got the same hot spots and cold spots as it did last year. If it's a charcoal grill, make sure the vents are cleaned and all that, so you get a nice flow. You can shut it down if you're going to do a long-term cook, so to speak. If it's just a grill and spill on the plate, then open her up and let her fly. Yeah. But I think that's a couple of things that are really important to people, because everybody's gotten pretty savvy about it. They've got covers on their grills or smokers or pellet grills, what have you, like that. Those pellets, if they sat in there all winter, they may be a little soggy. They may gum up your auger. You don't really want that. It's funny. I've noticed what's with some of these brands out there, and I'm just going to say this. They build that whole, basically they build the place where you're going to put the pellets where it goes into the auger, that hopper. Why do they put so many dang flat places in there so you can collect those things up? Why can't they just make it a basic, so it all goes in there? You mean kind of like an old auger on a combine or something that's at angular and all that? That's a good question. Because those things, they sit there all winter, and you got a cover on it, and those things are just like one big sponge, right? By the time, you're not stopping moisture, you're just stopping the rain from coming in the top, but that thing's going to soak everything up and get a gummy mess. Yep, you got that. And the cookers that I know I'm not going to use over the winter, I just burn them out. Yeah. Like the pellets, I just burn them out. The charcoal, I burn that off, then let it cool. Maybe the next day, clean it all out, so it's ready to go. But I do this more than most normal people. Yeah. So, but you want to make sure those are clean and functioning. You want to make sure that if you've got an electronic component to it, like an auger in a pellet grill. If you've got a digitized, because so much of it is digitized now, make sure all those little features are working. And then you can buy a good piece of meat from Painted Hills Natural Beef, I might add. Let's talk about them for a minute, man. And this is something that I'm a meat snob. I'll be the first to say it. For years, the best stuff I was getting was going to Costco and grabbing it there. And grabbing meat. That's good meat there. That's decent meat. And it's one place across the country you can go in and get something decent there, right? As far as a chain goes. But when you got me turned on to Painted Hills Natural Beef, and they're not paying me to say this, and actually right now I don't even have any beef in the freezer, so I'm not even getting beef out of this. But I want to say that's who I go to. I got the hint. No. I got the hint. No, but seriously, I mean, I'm not getting paid to say this. This is not an infomercial for them by any means. But what I'm saying is that is the meat. And there's just no question. Yeah. I'm a tri-tip guy, as you know, and I'll be the first to say that's just my favorite. Yeah, my favorite kind of meat that I like throwing on. There's a lot of the things I would much rather cook a tri-tip than do a brisket, because to me, it just tastes better. And that's my opinion. Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't take as long. Yeah. I mean, you can do a tri-tip in an hour and a half, depending on the size, that it's been trimmed to. Brisket, you're going to be a bit longer than that. But, the sundial is going to go the other direction by the end of the day when you're done with a brisket. But, I think the tri-tip is very good. And how about this? They've never done this before, by the way. My friends at Painted Hills, and again, this is not an infomercial. I'm just sharing information with you. My friends at Painted Hills have made a special discount program for my listeners and now your listeners, when you go to their online store, because they just revamped their online store.
Yeah, it looks good.
All right. And you can get T-bones and ribeyes and New Yorks and burgers
Brisket.
and all that stuff. You can get a brisket there. But you type in BBQ Nation, just the letters, BBQ Nation, and it'll take 15% off at the checkout. It's just a pretty big hit.
Yeah, and here's the cool thing is you're cutting the middleman out of it. Sorry, grocery stores. You know what I mean? You're buying from the place where the cows came from. You're not dealing with the 22 people that went between point A and point B.
Yeah, the ones that always say they're not making any money.
Sure. If you want to believe that.
But no, that's a we've been around too long.
I know,
buddy. It's really a cool thing though that they did that. So I would invite people to go online and I know you're going to post some links and stuff for Painted Hills to their online store. Pick something, apply the discount code. Eric's going to show that to you again on the postings, but it's BBQ Nation and enjoy it.
Yeah.
I've eaten beef all over the world. Okay, I have. I've been very fortunate to travel and do different things. And I've eaten some very good beef, and I've also eaten some beef that's not too sharp.
Yeah.
But and not just because I represent Painted Hills, I like their product a lot.
No question.
A lot. I know some people are like on the Wagyu bandwagon. If you like that, that's fine. Yeah. I don't have a problem with it. It's not for me because the times I've eaten it, it just seems a little too fatty, a little too much marbling for me.
Yeah.
So I see my mic stands and you want to see my beautiful face here. It's so, and you will notice on the Painted Hills website, they have Painted Hills Prime, Painted Hills Choice, and then they have grass fed. So you got three top tier choices to pick from.
So let's talk about that for a second, just on the beef side of things, because I know we've got a lot of listeners right now going, all right, what's the difference? You know what I mean? What's the difference between grass fed and those two? And what can you expect when you get one of those?
When you are dealing with a prime or a choice, they've been finished out in the feedlot. They've been finished on grain. Yep. Their meat is very marbled, not so heavily marbled that you can't taste the beef and all you taste is the fat. That's not the deal. It's very balanced like that. And like I said, that's in prime and choice. Grass-fed is not finished out in a feedlot. They are in a lot, but they only get like a hay-based feed.
Yeah.
Every day like that. So they don't have the same degree of marbling. They still, and so they won't grade out at prime.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to get a grass-fed prime because they'd have to feed that cow or that steer till he's, like me, can't walk by the water. Greenpeace is trying to push them in. So they would just be too big, and they're not. We could go on for an hour about what happens when they're in the lot and the daily amount that go through the process, and that there's actually steers that weigh too much.
Absolutely.
We had that during the COVID thing because they couldn't process as many as they needed. So those steers kept going to the back of the line and going through the process again. Finally, some of them were 2 or 3 months past when their projected harvest date, like that. So they were bigger steers. That actually presents some logistics problems. Sometimes they have to get so many. Most of the meat comes to your grocery store now in a box. They're pre-cut. They're kind of rough cut, and so they will get like a primal, the rib roast, as we call it, prime rib. All right. And they'll get 4 of those bone in and 5 of those without bones in a box. All right. But if you get some steer that weighs 1,400, 1,500 pounds versus one that's down around 1150, 12, 13, that extra weight, then there's not enough room in the box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It presents a whole bunch of side issues.
Yeah. So that's why they try to keep everything flowing pretty smoothly and rapidly and get it through like that. So, but the big difference in the prime choice and grass fed is just the way they're finished. The grading between prime and choice can be just a fine line.
Yeah. And then my cattle that I had were kind of like the Easter days. They just kept coming around and around and nobody knew where they were and they didn't exist. But that's a whole other joke out of the West Coast people that look it up on Google.
True. The vanishing herd.
Exactly. We've heard of ghost guns, ghost fleets, and there's ghost cattle.
There's ghost cattle. They got really good at that in Wyoming and Montana about 100 years ago. So, 120 years ago, they knew how to make that work.
It shows that those old tricks still work today.
Oh, yeah. Now you just have to move them in the semi and not on a cattle drive. Yeah.
They're still moving, though. They're still moving.
They're still moving. Rolling.
So, question about the grass-fed stuff, is that going to taste any more, gamey or grassy compared to what you'd see something that was grain finished?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not in the Painted Hills products. I can't speak to everybody's grass-fed programs. It's not going to have as deep of a rich flavor as the choice or prime, but it's still going to be very good. Yeah. It's just not going to have that bit of marbling in it. It has some marbling in it. It's not like eating a buffalo. All right.
Exactly.
But it's limited compared to the other two classifications.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if I walk into a grocery store, I see this certified Angus. Is that just a marketing thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, it is a piece of Angus there, but
it's not a grade, right?
No, it's just a statement, more or less. They're telling you that this came from an Angus steer. Mm-hmm. It did. Okay. That's where it stops.
Yeah, it could still be choice, right?
Yeah. It'll say, it should say on any label, if it is, certified choice, certified prime, certified select. I mean, one big chain used to have, their name, insert the word select behind it. And nobody knew what that meant 20 years ago, except people in the ag world. Now they figured it out, and a lot of the stores don't sell it anymore. Yeah. They that goes off to
hamburger,
some secondary markets. Yeah, exactly.
That shows up in the sale hamburger on Friday afternoon, right?
Yeah, it's in the bin way down there by the kumquats. Yeah. It's just way down there.
That's the
they don't even
price.
check it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that makes sense. But that's where I tell you what, it's one of the lessons I've learned in cooking is the quality of the product directly relates to the end product that ends up on your table. There is no shortcutting that. There is, you could find a great sale or a great buy, like 15% off, but you get what you pay for.
That's what I was going to say, Bud, was you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
You cannot take a select, even if it's a select filet.
Yeah.
And yes, there is such a thing. But that will not taste anywhere near like a choice or a prime filet.
Yeah.
Okay. Or actually America's favorite is kind of the ribeye.
Yeah.
And
I love a good ribeye.
A lot of professional chefs now have gotten on this kick. Like, we don't like fillets. They're kind of spongy and tasteless. Well, I think they're still a great piece of meat, but I do like ribeyes, and I also like New York's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
buy a T-bone, get the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the thing. And so let's back up here and talk to the rookie that's probably in another month going to walk into their home center and want to throw down a few $100 on a barbecue because maybe they've got that old one out there, that $199 charbroil that lasted the 48 months and it's ready to go off to the landfill. You know what I mean? Well, you got to check with the raccoons first, because usually they've set up a squatter's deal in that type of barbecue. Yeah, because they got that big open bottom and they just that's home, right?
Yeah. They got a little balcony. They got some, sun and shade and all that stuff. So yeah, it's all cool.
Got to be careful those. But yeah, that's the problem is, and I think this is, again, it's like power tools to me, right? If you buy the right tool, it can last you a long time. And if you go out and buy that cheap tool and figure out, okay, I'm going to be barbecuing for 20 years. This is not a smart thing, spending $200 every 18 months and throwing away a barbecue.
Right. My advice to people is, number one, go to AmazingRibs.com and they review almost every barbecue that's on the market. Gas, pellet, charcoal, doesn't matter. All right. And every level, from entry level to, $15,000 units. Yeah. They do that. They don't get paid for it. It's kind of like consumer reports for barbecue.
Nice.
The other thing is you have to look at it. And I know money's tight right now because of everything else that's going on. Sure. But if you're going to go to a big box store and you're going to lay down $199.99 for a stainless steel that's not put together very well. If you actually open it up and you look down in the box or you look through the lid, you can see sometimes in the corners gaps. You're a tool guy, you know what I'm talking about. You got leaks.
Swiss cheese,
there.
Right? Swiss cheese.
Yeah. So your airflow, your heat flow is going to be all messed up. It's not that it's not going to work. It's just going to be messed up. It's going to take you longer, or you're going to burn something up faster.
Well, and then if you get a slight breeze, it completely screws up your cooking cycle because you're letting that in there, and all of a sudden the breeze side is cold and the front side is hot because, or whichever way it's going, because you've got a 15 mile an hour wind outside that's killing your cooking.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there's all kinds of things you can do about that. There's, heat insulated blankets, if you will, that you can put over your grills. But who wants to do all that crap? Yeah. If you're thinking $199, think $399 to $499. You're going to get a better quality grill. It's going to last you not just 1 or 2 years. It can last you 10 years very easily if you take care of it. The sheet metal is thicker, holds the heat better. There's no gaps in it. The elements, for example, if it's gas, look at the elements. There's various sizes and shapes of the gas elements that come up where you see the flames. All right. So if you got one that's just got 2 elements down there and they look kind of tinny and crappy, that's probably how it's going to end up, tinny and crappy. As far as the gas flow, they burn out easier, so on and so forth. I would go for a 3-element burner minimum. Yep. That way you can have a hot side and or as we call it, a direct heat and indirect heat. Yep. It's easier to cook chicken and ribs and big pieces of beef that way, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. All right. So those are some things you look for. Make sure the regulators are good and solid. Not something that was, kind of made in the jungles of Botswana. And it's a couple of pieces of bamboo nailed together. So you just quality. Yeah. Really, the word is quality, Eric. And you and I talk about this a lot, not only in barbecues, but in tools and kitchen tools, chainsaws, whatever. And I think that's really important. To look at that. Well,
great example. I bought probably 7 or 8 years ago. I bought one of those Weber kettle cart ones. You know what I mean? That have the kettle. It's the gold one. That thing is as good a shape as it was the day I got it. And I will probably get rid of it to make space for something else before it wears out. It will live another life with somebody else because, again, it wasn't expensive, but man, if you're throwing burgers and dogs and a steak or 2 on there, that thing works great.
Oh, yeah. Those Weber kettles, number one, they're the number 1 selling barbecue in the world. They have been forever. Yep. If you start by using a Weber kettle, you're probably going to adapt your skills faster or learn your skills faster than you are on a $199 gas grill. because you have to pay more attention with charcoal. You just do. Very simple, easy mistakes that people make. They put in too much briquettes or they lump whatever they're using, gets too hot. They let it burn down a little bit. And then they think, okay, it's good. It's still hotter than hell in there, and they think, well, now I can do this whole chicken or whatever. Maybe they've spatchcocked it or something. A lot of times you end up with one side that's pretty much crispy and the other side that's still clucking. Yeah. All right. So that doesn't work out well. So using that, adjusting and controlling your airflow through the vents and stuff, all that with a Weber kettle is great education.
No question.
Yeah.
No question. It made me a much better barbecuer with learning with that thing because, I had gas grills and stuff for years and years and years. And using that and figuring out that, I need to crack this a little more, close this up or vice versa. That's really where you understand how the whole heat thing works. And it just makes any other barbecue you use make even more sense because that's kind of the more labor intensive way to cook, but it also tastes killer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great. I think that pretty much all great hands, if you will, in the barbecue world started with a Weber kettle or a cheap stick burner smoker, offset smoker like that.
Yeah.
I do have one, and I think I've said this before on your show, but it's been a while. I have one that I've had for over 20 years, stick burner. It was cheap at the time. 20 years ago, I think I paid $200, but that was a bigger number.
Yeah, that's a $600 grill now, right?
Yeah, right. And I still have that old bugger sitting out behind the shop, and I, wheel her up to the deck once or twice a year. Now I pretty much cook or smoked salmon fillets or stuff like that.
And that's great.
But they're great.
Are you looking for a good night's sleep? I had a mattress from a box that was keeping me up all night long. I stopped in at Mattress Warehouse USA, and they handmade me a new one that is getting me the best sleep of my life. Plus, if you need a custom size, they can handle that too. For handcrafted care at prices that are much less than the big mattress stores, head to mattresslw.com. Make sure and mention Eric G sent you for 10% off your purchase. Plus, they ship anywhere in the U.S. mattresslw.com.
Sleep well.
Yeah.
So what do you think about people out there trying to, in the 70s, everybody was using the light, the fluid to light the briquettes and stuff like that. And to me, it always tastes like you used fluid to light your briquettes. What's your thought on that between that and the quick start flame, or you know what I mean? There's a briquette for everything out there, it seems, but these days, but what's your thought?
The for under $30, you can buy a chimney, which is you pre-light and ignite your charcoal lump or briquette. You can get it started. Once it's really cooking, you just pour it down on the rack where your charcoal goes. I am not in favor of any quick start stuff because you've got that residue, and I don't care what you do, that residue is going to be there. I do keep a couple of bottles of that Kingsford lighter fluid around, but that's usually for my burn pile or when I'm burning up weeds or something.
Yeah, that's for agricultural work. That's not for cooking.
That's not for food.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I like with my Weber kettle is mine came with that little propane can start, which that's the easy button. I mean, turn the knob, hit the button. 2 minutes later, I walk away, and it's like a built-in chimney on that thing, and it's ready to go.
I'll tell you, I got something that you would like. I don't know if I've ever shown it to you, but it's called Grill Blazer. It looks like a Taurus 9mm with an extended tube on the end and a little flamethrower thing out there. You use those little Coleman cylinders full of propane, but that's just like a gun, and you start it and you can get some hot spots. If you don't have a chimney, you just stack them up and get them going with that thing, and it works great. Also burns weeds really well.
There you go.
But there's all kinds of things you can use. I remember when I was a kid, we had an electric starter.
Oh yeah,
that it was
that
kind
coil?
of U-shaped.
The U-shaped coil,
thing.
It was like an oven coil. Yeah.
Yeah, you stacked stuff on it and you plugged it in. And, if you didn't blow a breaker in the backyard, then you were like, yeah, we're going, and then like 2 hours later, everything was kind of cooking.
Yeah, my dad had that too for his Weber kettle. I just remember that as a kid. You just jostled that memory out. Yeah, it was, probably a 12-inch wide, 12-inch long coil and a black handle. A cord came off, and you could plug that thing in the outside element, and the lights inside the house dim a little bit, and
yeah, flicker.
Yep.
Flicker. Yeah, do that flicker thing. But those worked pretty good.
Yeah.
Truthfully. But nowadays with those chimneys, you just put them in there. You put a little newspaper in the bottom of them if you want. Put the charcoal in there, light the newspaper. I just keep it up on half the rack.
Yeah.
Because we got racks that flip over and stuff. I just keep it up there when it's starting. And then when it's ready, I just put it down in there and get going.
Yeah. And you're good to go.
It works out really.
I got another question for you, brother. Another question. Like, here in Portland, where you and I both live in this metro area, but thank God not in the middle of the metro area. I love going down to Ringside Grill and having a dry aged steak every once in a while. What's your thought on the aging process with that? And that, I mean, it's a totally different taste, but to me, I like it. Some people don't.
Yeah, I think aging for beef is a good thing. I think aging for me, not so much. And I have been dry for 20 years, but
stay liquid, my friend.
Stay liquid. Yeah, liquid sunshine.
Exactly.
I don't have a problem with that because when I grew up, we would buy a half or a quarter of beef, or if we raised the steer, we, a lot of that stuff was already cut and wrapped.
Yeah.
The white paper and labeled and all that stuff. And you put it in the freezer.
You go freezer diving and try to figure out what it is.
What it is, all that stuff. Find some clams in there from 1964. That's not going to work. But if you go to some butcher shops, and there's still some that do this, they've still got a carcass back in the back in the cold room as well. And if you want some fresh T-bones or whatever you want, they'll go cut them for you. But that carcass has maybe been hanging in there for a couple of weeks or whatever their prescribed time is. You're not going to make it go bad because you're keeping those carcasses right above freezing. Okay. You don't want to get it up into the 40s. That will get the bacteria stuff going. And then pretty soon you're going to lose all or part of it, but it keeps it right down there. So the bacteria doesn't grow, and it's very dry. There's no moisture in the room. That's why you get that kind of almost black, hard exterior on some of those cuts. If they've taken the rib out of the carcass, and you'll see that black on both ends of it. That they just kind of trim off more or less, because that makes the meat a little tougher right there. But once you get inside that, it's wonderful. But also, like you said, Eric, it's not for everybody. It's got a very distinctive flavor. The stuff you're buying at the grocery store, whether it's in the case where, you pick out 3 steaks or what have you, or the prepackaged stuff, that stuff has not been in the box, you might say, very long. Yeah. They're not aging. Yeah. They have to go through and process so many head of steers every day to keep the supply chain going. Yeah. And in pigs and chicken, it's worse.
Yeah, that stuff's almost days, right? Versus weeks to months. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is days. Yeah. It really is days. I mean, Will from Painted Hills and I have talked about this a lot. They'd go in, they'd go through the processing plant, they hang them. They do it to drain any excess fluids. By the way, folks, when you cut into a steak, that kind of pink juicy stuff, that's not blood, right? That's hemoglobin. It adds to the flavor.
The flavor machine.
I've been known to pour that stuff on my baked potatoes, and
nothing wrong with that.
Great flavor there.
A little bread to soak it up.
But, a little bread to soak it up. But from the time that steer is hung and cut up, put in a box, along with his buddies, to get to the grocery store, that's maybe a week to 10 days 2 weeks like that. And once they're vacuum packed in those big pieces, they're not really aging like dry aging.
No, because all the moisture's in there, so it doesn't really give it a chance to break down. I mean, that's kind of part of the whole theory of dry aging, right? Is that you're changing the moisture content in the meat a little bit, but at the same time, that the enzymes that are there are breaking down, right? But when you put it that cold and seal it up, it's kind of just in park.
Yeah, it's just kind of like your first wife, just never, aged horribly.
My second one.
You can take that. You can take that out.
Nope.
That's a bad joke. But it's, the enzyme process like that, the breakdown process. And, in the old days, when I say the old days, I'm talking in the 1800s to the 1920s. Maybe in this country, because we didn't have mass refrigeration. No. We didn't have a lot of that.
A lot of ice.
But if you went to a restaurant in New York in 1902 and you ordered a Delmonico, as they called it in that day, or you ordered a strip or something, a lot of that was just cut off the carcass in the back room.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have huge amounts of room for refrigeration. Yeah. So they had a dry room that was cold, that had big blocks of ice in it and sawdust on the floor. Yep. And the chef or whoever would go back there and, cut out a primal and do that. And that's what they would be serving that night. Or they would make stew out of, the round steak or whatever they were doing. They had it chilling itself in the back room.
Yeah, and the special was what they had a lot of, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, or what was left over after the weekend. Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's the way it kind of worked. And it worked that way for ranchers and farmers. A lot of these guys had a cold room, a cellar, if you will. They had a veg cellar. Some of them had meat cellars. And again, they would get ice. If it was the wintertime in Wyoming, hell, you didn't need ice.
No, you're trying to keep it warm.
It was just cold. Yeah. So, they just go back and take what they wanted. There's that famous scene in the Billy the Kid movies where supposedly at the end where he's going to get shot by Pat Garrett. He goes to cut off a piece of beef, a steak, and Paulina's going to cook it for him. And that's one part. That's one little segment scene that they've kept consistent through most all the Billy the Kid movies. But the point is, you saw, a quarter of a carcass or half a carcass laying there, and somebody was cutting off a piece of meat.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I get it, because back then it was a whole different time. That was a whole different time.
Oh, yeah.
So another question for you, JT, before we run out of time here today. If someone's going to go out and go barbecue shopping, you get the gas grill, you get the pellet grill. There's a huge local company here that started out local and now they're not local, and they've got a pellet grill that goes around everywhere that you can buy in just about every home improvement store out there that you can see. That's a big name. Right. And then there's charcoal. What do you recommend for that beginning, person that wants to jump into barbecue?
I would say it depends on again, what you want to do. If you just want something to be able to cook your food, get a bit of that barbecue taste, but do it quickly, I would say go with a gas grill.
Yep.
Okay. They sell more gas grills than they sell anything, because people can come home, fire up the gas grill, go change their clothes, come back, wrap up a potato and put it on there, go in and make their salad, do this. And in a half hour, they go put their steak on and they're done. Yeah. Kind of the same with a pellet grill. You have to be real cautious about the pellet grills, because they'll say, well, we can get this pellet grill up to 700 degrees, basically inferring that they could sear something. And some of them even have little sear stations on them. I've cooked steaks on pellet grills, but it's never had quite the sizzle as it did either for gas or charcoal. But steak isn't the only thing I cook, and steak isn't the only thing most people cook. Yeah. If you're going to do ribs or fish. So here's the deal. If you want a bit of a more smoky flavor, And an ease of convenience, probably the pellet grill. If you want a quick turnaround, go with the gas grill. Those are just kind of, blatant statements, but they are true. Yeah. If you really want to get into it, then look at the charcoal stuff.
Yeah. And that's the problem I had with, I'm getting ready to probably get my first pellet grill here one of these days. And we can talk about that in a future episode. But my thing when getting one was I wanted to get something that had an ability to be able, if I wanted to throw a steak on it, to be able to get that temp. And there's only a few of them out there that legitimately can kind of do that. And it's only because they've got some kind of mechanism that will allow the heat from that firebox to get up into there. Otherwise, you're not getting that bark on the outside of a steak. It's going to taste good, but if you think you're getting a crust on the outside of that, you're probably mistaken.
Well, the process with a pellet grill and that bark you're talking about, it's called the Maillard reaction. Mm-hmm. It takes a while. When we cook ribs, for example, my friends that are competitors, they want the perfect bark on it. They want this, they want that. I don't compete. I don't care about that. But I like my food when I bring it in to be pretty. So the people we're feeding are happy with it. It takes a long time or longer time on a pellet grill to get that bark, as you're calling it. And I agree. And that's a period of time. That's over a couple, 3 hours. Yeah. To do a rack of ribs properly, it's 2.5, 3.5 hours because it's kind of a low and slow thing, but it will have a bark on it. Right. You can't do that with a steak. You have to have that temperature above 500 degrees. I hate to say this, but a lot of the pellet grill companies that say, oh yeah, you can do that. You have to be very careful with that too. I have found that just as my experience, I have to clean my pellet grills. I've got two of them more frequently than I ever do my gas grill or my charcoal grill, because you got drip pans, you get, especially if you're cooking pork or chicken, there's a lot of grease on it. And there are pans you can buy that come with screens in them. You can find those on Amazon. You can buy 3 of them, 3 different sizes for like $29, but they're great. Yeah. But most people don't want to take the time to go mess around and do that. But you can get fires in pellet grills. Yeah. Okay. In a charcoal grill, you get a fire, you shut off the vents, pull your protein off, close the lid, it'll go out eventually. Yeah. With the pellet grill, you have to be careful because they have been known to go fire in the firebox, grease fire in the pan, and it goes up the auger and it smolders. Yep. Okay. It will smolder because your auger is about 2.5, 3 feet long, something like that. And there's pellets in there all the time. And they will, because I've cleaned them out and seen, God, these are already black. Yeah. They've been charred. So you have to be a little more careful with that, especially if you think you're going to get it up around 500, 550. Some of them are touting this will go to 700. Like I said, why do you need that? Yeah. That's my question. Yeah. Why do you need that? Because you can get that bark on something, 550. Yeah, and you're not trying to use your Traeger as a London broil machine here either, right? I mean, you're not going to get that thing up to 1,000 degrees. It's just wrong tool for the wrong job. Yeah. I mean, if you want to say I can get it that hot, okay, great. I don't need to see it. Yeah. Because that's not what I'm going to use to cook a steak. You got to remember, like in your kitchen, you're going to broil a steak, right? Yep. Now, there's a couple ways to do it. You can put it on a broiling pan. You can set the broil on high, which is, again, 550 to 600 degrees, depending on your unit. Yep. Put them on there, season it, throw it in there. 6 to 8 minutes later, you might want to flip it over, put a little more seasoning on it, pop it back in the oven, and in about 12 minutes, you're done. Yeah. Right? Give or take, depending on the cut of meat, how thick, and all that. Or you can sear it in a cast iron skillet, put a little butter on it, throw the skillet, guts, feathers, and all into the oven, again, at around 500 degrees, and let it sit there for just a few minutes. depending on the recipe you're following, and pull it out, and you've got a lovely steak.
Yeah. See,
but you can't do that in a pellet grill per se.
Now, what I do with in the wintertime, especially when I don't want to be standing outside for a long time, maybe it's, 30 degrees and raining or something outside, I'll go out and start it up, get it going. I'll get the barbecue really hot out there, get that grill going. I'll throw that tri-tip roast on there and just get some good sear marks on it and drop the temperature down and just let it catch some smoke. And then I've got a cast iron pan that's sitting in the oven at about 425. I will take that, put it on a plate, take it in there, drop it in that with a big pat of butter, and I finish it off in the oven.
Yeah.
And makes for a killer steak. And that cast iron pan is, hyper seasoned, and it just, you flop it over once in there to make sure you're good. And man, you've got all the ultimate control, and you still taste like you did something outside with it. But I'm not standing outside trying to manage it in a parka,
we just had Harry Sue on. Harry's a big time champion competitor, barbecue competitor, very smart guy. Used to fly 747s for Singapore Airlines.
Cool.
And he's got a really Renaissance man story. He finishes some of his competition briskets off in the oven. Okay. I didn't know he did that.
That's cool.
It made perfect sense. And so it's, which show was about a week, 10 days ago. So, if they want to hunt that down online, they can find it. But he tells how he does that. And he puts it on the smoker. He gets it going. He gets the bark going. He does this. He puts some butter in there, wraps it up, throws it in the oven to finish it off. But here, I'm going to give you a pro tip, buddy. Here's the deal. If you are ever cooking a brisket, I learned this from Harry, and you're doing the low and slow thing. Yep. Well, if you've ever seen that, it makes puddles in the top of the piece of meat, on top of the brisket. There's little puddles, and that's just fluid, but it settles. And right where those puddles are, you will not get the bark you want.
Correct.
Okay. What Harry does is he takes like 2 or 3 little wood blocks, and he puts them on the grill, and he sets the brisket on it, and it domes it ever so slightly.
He just makes a curve on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you got the bark all the way across. Perfect.
And if you got the right wood in there, if it gets a little charry, who cares, right? You're just adding more flavor.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And and I wouldn't like soak them in water for 3 weeks before you do that, because, people are like, it's steam coming off of there for the first half hour, 45 minutes until the wood actually starts to ignite. And then, you don't particularly want that right in contact with your protein, but kind of dome that thing. It works out really good.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm cooking with charcoal, I'll take a handful of like cherry or pecan or whatever I want to do, and I'll throw it in some water for 5 or 10 minutes, and then throw it in there on the coals to get some smoke going. But that's just a little handful, and then I put my meat on it. Is that the right way to do that?
Actually, the best way to do it is if you put the wood down first.
Okay.
And then you put the charcoal on top.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Then you do it that way. It changes the flavor profile a little bit. But the one thing that you're talking about, and millions of people do it, I've done it. You put some damp or soaked cherry wood on it. The first, 20 minutes, an hour, that's all steam.
Yeah.
Coming out of there. That's not smoke. That's steam.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's going to affect the moisture and different things in your actual protein. So I think it's better to put it underneath.
Yeah. You don't want a White Castle burger, right? You just.
No. We're all good on that. So I would do it that way, and then kind of, keep an eye on it as you're going through the cook.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're going to really try a brisket, now I don't want to get off in the weeds here. We'll do this on another show closer to summer, but if you buy a full brisket, what we call a packer, it's got a point and it's got this big muscle on the one side of it and all that. The pro guys will trim that off, that big muscle, and cook it separately. You can buy brisket flats, which right now I'm sure are going out the door because it's St. Patrick's Day, but they're just squares, basically like that. If you've never cooked a brisket before, I would suggest you start with one of those. There you go. Because you've got, on a regular brisket, you've got meat that's, 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick, and meat that's 5 to 6 inches thick, all in one piece of meat.
Yeah, so that's all different cooking times right there.
Yeah, and so you really got to know how to do that. Another show we can talk about the stall and all kinds of stuff if you're going to do the low and slow thing. But I really think if you put the wood chips or whatever in the burn box first and put your charcoal over top of it, and that's designed for an offset. But if you're doing it in a Weber or whatever, you can do that. Yeah, I think you get a better result.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, JT, one last question before we go out of here. I want to talk about BBQ Nation for a minute. What are some of your favorite guests you've had on this last year? You've had some heavy hitters, I know, but who are some of the ones that you walked away going, wow, that was fun?
I think Harry was a lot of fun. Harry Sue. Of course, we always have Meathead on there.
AmazingRibs.com.
Oh, yeah. Chris Lilly, who's from Big Bob Gibson's down in Alabama. Okay. They have that famous white barbecue sauce there. I think he was good. We had Tuffy Stone on there. We've had some big hitters. We had Chef Michael Simon on there. God, he was
that's right. You went A-list there. That was that's A-list.
And Michael didn't care about FCC rules or anything like that.
Excellent. That makes for good podcasting, at least. Maybe not so good radio, but podcasting's good. So,
well, it made David work a little harder on the radio side, but the podcast
good to make hilarious. Him work, right?
Yeah. So this next week we've got Chef Steph from LA is coming up. Trying to think who else we've got. We've got some pretty big ones. I have been working on Emerald for a while. We'll get him eventually.
Mr. Lagasse.
Yeah, I like him a lot. Oh, and of course we always have Graham Kerr, the Galloping Gourmet,
legend,
a couple times.
Legend,
and Buddy, and all that stuff. Yeah. So yeah, we've had some, and of course Leanne is now in the Hall of Fame. Yep. And she's my co-pilot on that thing. Yeah. And so
she is no joke on that cooking thing too. If you ever watched that show with Bobby Flay that she did and took away the win on.
Yeah.
So that was good.
She'll get right after it. She's little, but she's mighty.
Oh yeah.
Trust me.
No question. No question.
And feisty.
Oh yeah. So if somebody wants to check out your show, where do they go, my friend?
Well, if they want to listen to it on terrestrial radio, you can listen to it in the Portland area, and then we're kind of in a lot of markets you're in, Milwaukee, up there,
all around. Yeah,
all around.
We share a lot of different places, no question.
Yeah, we do share a lot of. If you want to just listen to it online at your convenience, I would just go to wherever your favorite podcasts are, like Apple or one of those, and we're on Spotify and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And just go BBQ Nation, which now is a trademark name for me.
Congrats, by the way.
Yeah. So you just go BBQ Nation or BBQ Nation JT and Leanne, or just JT. You'll find us.
Yeah, you're there.
Like that. And then we have we converted, like you have, we've converted the radio show to a podcast, and now we've got a YouTube channel that they're starting to load up. We have a lot of film that we haven't processed yet, but we're getting to it. We're trying to do 2 or 3 episodes a week.
That's great.
So it's just BBQ Nation there. And then don't forget about my lowly golf show out there.
I was just going to mention that.
We talk about the food there too. Yep. And grilling at the green. So we've had some pretty big sports writers and golfers and celebrities on there too. So it's all good.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show today, brother. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we got some people out there, a little more education about starting to put some protein on the grill, right?
Yeah. Don't forget about the Painted Hills discount.
Oh, yeah. Make sure if you're listening to the podcast, it'll be down in the show notes. I'll put it down there, as well as head over to, I'll have it on my website here as well, roundthehouseonline.com. You can check it there. And, of course, it'll be on all of our social media. And I think I'll be making a purchase here, too, because I need to fill that freezer back up.
Just do it. Put a smile on their face, a smile on your face when you start to eat that meat. It's really good. That's all I can say.
It is.
It's
I'm
really
getting
good.
hungry. All right. Thanks, brother. I'm Eric G, and you've been listening to Around the House.
Yes, you have.
Anywhere beyond the me. Life is a love song. Let's be lovers. We're all over the radio. Take my hand, I know where to go. All over the radio with you.
Hey, it's Eric G from Around the House. Are you planning a decking or siding project this year? If you are, you've got to check out my friends at Millboard. Millboard is a completely different kind of composite decking and cladding that enhances outdoor spaces with enduring distinction. Hand-molded from the finest oak, it realistically mimics the natural grain and color of premium hardwood. If you're looking for something that doesn't look like plastic and instead real wood, check out millboard.com. Make sure and check out that interview we did just a few weeks back. That's millboard.com.